Hey folks, my name is Aaron Aldrich. I use they, them pronouns. You can find me on the Bird app at Craze, and please do. I would love to chat with more folks online. We're going to look today at community, specifically how can we organize with our communities and inside of our communities to kind of build awesome stuff. And we're going to use Blaseball as the lens to look through all of that. So in order to do that, we're going to have to answer first, of course, WTF is Blaseball anyway? Well, on its surface, it is a web game developed by The Game Band and living at Blaseball.com. It's kind of a fantasy horror baseball simulator. You can log in to the website and pick your favorite team. I love a good pun, so I have joined the core mechanics. But maybe you're into the Chicago Firefighters or the Atlantis Georgias. You earn coins when your team wins or, batters get on base and things based on the snacks that you can then buy with those coins. And it happens a lot because games occur every real-world hour. And the outcomes of any of those interactions are based on the player stats, which you can find here. Everything from how good they are at batting to how they want their coffee or what their soul scream sounds like. And a champion is crowned every week. That's kind of the surface layer of it, but you want to hold on a little bit, as I think Quinn's really gets it here. Going deeper into what makes this game an online sensation is like trying to do an autopsy on the Philly Fanatic. You see, behind all of those star stats are these advanced statistics. Just the ones circled in red control pitching, things like total number of fingers, the lowest number of which is 10. Engineer and designer Joel Clark says, I describe a lot of it as just subconscious, just mostly thinking about what would be funny and just letting it happen. Because minimum 10 fingers is just the beginning of the weirdness. There's weather patterns like blood drain, where players can drain the blood of the opposing team to become stronger. Salmon that reverse time, glitter, black holes, jazz, which will of course improvise the weather, or solar eclipses, where rogue umpires can incinerate beloved players on your team, removing them into the Hall of Flames forevermore. And at the end of every season, you can also use your coins to buy votes, just like any good democracy, and spend it on decrees, which will affect the whole league. Or maybe you want a chance to win a blessing just for your team, like Xenomorph, which gives your entire team acidic blood, which that's all the information you get, because that's part of the fun, is finding out what does this mean? What do we want? Acidic blood? That sounds cool. Let's vote for it and discover what happens together as sort of a fan base and a community. That's what makes this exciting. This is built in collaboration with their gameplay community. It was always like, let's make a game that centers around community and plays with it and sees what comes out of it. Let's just take this incineration, this RIV that folks say when players get incinerated, of course, stands for rest in violence. But all of this was after the first player incinerated in a game, Hades Tigers, Landry Violence. The players took to saying rest in violence in their honor, and it was canonized in Season 8 by the developers, placed in the ticker across the top of the website. And the lore just keeps going. Like any good fan base, there is fanfic about everybody. Players have multiple stories. So they invented the interdimensional rumor mill. So when you visit their page on the Blaseball wiki, you'll be served a random one about that player, as if you're just reaching into the multiverse and pulling out a story. There is so much lore that even the concept of the interdimensional rumor mill has its own lore page in addition to the help of how to use it for your players practically. Artwork comes out of it. They start discussing it in the Discord with like a player name like Kelvin Drum Solo, and the design just goes from there of maybe he's playing the drums. Well, how do you do that while play baseball? He's on a giant spider mech, of course. They have relationships like Core Mechanics' actual swarm of bees, Taswell, who just recently announced their engagement to other swarm of bees, Inez Owens of the Boston Flowers. That's right. There's relationships and everything, like any good fandom has. And there's music. There are 42 albums worth of music on Bandcamp, all under the band The Garages from Seattle, Washington, not to be confused with the Blaseball team, the Seattle Garages. And it's not just artsy, artistic stuff, too. Folks that are into coding play this game. There's a Society for Internet Blaseball Research. They realize, hey, this is a web app. We can get the code from this. We can deconstruct things. We can start tracking patterns and recording games and getting real life baseball stats. Stats nerds play this stuff all the time. There is a whole GitHub page just for the Society for Internet Blaseball Research and all of their projects, including, by the way, the Columbia River Salmon Passage harvest model, which is a fantastic story. Any stories, ask me about afterward, because I just literally don't have enough time to tell you everything. They also keep track of the falsehoods programmers believe about Blaseball. You might have seen this meme about other things, and this is like super true of software dev and operations, right? We kind of expect things to be one way, and we're just sort of proved wrong through experience. Like, how about this example? The home team pitcher and the away team pitcher must be different players, except for that one game when Yosh Carpenter got switched teams due to reverb weather, like you do, and just refused to leave the mound, pitching that game for both the San Francisco Lovers and the Hawaii Fridays. Or how about a lineup player cannot bat and be on base at the same time, except, well, maybe they can. Joel Clark again. Sometimes I think the community is making a game just as much as we are. And never is that more true than the saga of Jalen Hot Dog Fingers. Again, please ask me about it. I don't have time. But the short of it is Jalen gets incinerated. Some things happen in the game where the Seattle Garages try to hatch a plot. It takes a ton of coordination amongst players and fans and multiple teams to say, hey, maybe we can bring Jalen back from the dead if we can kind of do these things. That would technically mean he's on our team, so maybe he'll come back and be alive and can pitch. The devs go full on yes and with this. Yes, you should be able to resurrect players from the dead like this, and necromancy has consequences. Jalen joins their team but starts hitting other players with the pitch, causing them to become unstable and vastly more likely to be incinerated themselves. The joy of defeating death quickly turns to horror as the league erupts in flames. And now it's a good time to talk about Anarchy, I think. And look, I joke about that transition, but seriously, we're not talking about chaos and lawlessness, which is kind of this colloquial thing. No, I really want to talk about the scholarly political term of anarchism, right? As a society in which all individuals can do whatever they choose, except interfere with the ability of other individuals to do what they choose. So this is kind of a guiding principle of the game, right? As players, we can do whatever we want in this game, but we can't really force anyone else to do things with us. So how do we do cool stuff like resurrect Jalen Hot Dog Fingers from the dead? Well, I mean, first off, it turns out if you've got a good idea, people will just do things because it's cool. Like, the internet exists because a bunch of nerds thought it would be cool to collaborate on that. But let's look at practically how we do this in Blaseball. This is the Blaseball Discord. You can see there's quite a few people in it. So organizing these folks is a little difficult. I'm going to talk about the core mechanics. We have about 814 players in the Discord as time of writing, because that's my team, and they're really the only ones I know about. In the main mechanics Discord channel, you've got Carlbot, who pops up periodically, just kind of reminding folks, like, if you just joining us, here's where you can go to get involved. One of the things I want to point out is that you'll notice Carlbot, a bot, has pronouns in his nickname on Discord that say he, him. Carlbot is a he. That's kind of awesome that it's normalized so much to have your pronouns next to your nickname in the Discord that folks like me who use they, them, and might not be obvious from our picture or our name on Discord, like, it doesn't feel weird to do that. I don't have to hide it in a profile and hope that people look it up before they refer to me. It's just there because it's there for everybody. And there is a mix. It's really exciting and super awesome. But anyway, so the first thing he talks about is where to go to get the vibes for the team. And I think that's an important thing to latch onto and to have. So I want to look at what the core mechanics say. What are their values as a team? First thing to know is, of course, the core is down. And here we all lift together. We look out for each other down here. We're all responsible for building a safe and inclusive community. We're committed to allowing everyone the space to express themselves while remaining consistent with what the groundskeeper, that's like the main Discord mods, expect our spaces to be. We're all required to respect each other's personal interpretation of Blaseball canon and recognize that no one is beholden to anyone else's vision. And we expect that each and every one of us to take responsibility for our own actions and the effect they have on our teammates. This is kind of like our code of conduct, and at DevOpsDays and why we enforce it. It all does the same thing, because the first half of anarchism, anyone can do whatever they choose, is kind of easy, right? Like, okay, no rules. But the second half takes enforcement, because this part about accept, interfere with the ability of others runs us headlong into the paradox of tolerance. If you haven't heard of this before, the paradox of tolerance kind of says to build any really inclusive society or community, you have to tolerate everything except that which is intolerant. I think this is best illustrated through a story that was shared on Twitter last year, and I'm just going to read it. Was at a shitty crust punk bar once getting an after-work beer, one of those shitholes where the bartender clearly hates you. So the bartender and I were ignoring one another when someone sits next to me and he immediately says, "No, get out." The dude next to me says, "Hey, I'm not doing anything. I'm a paying customer." And the bartender reaches under the counter for a bat or something and says, "Out now." The dude leaves kind of yelling, and he was dressed in punk uniform, I noticed. And so anyway, I asked what that was about, and the bartender was like, "You didn't see his vest, but it was all Nazi shit. Iron crosses and stuff. You get to recognize them." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he continues. "You have to nip it in the bud immediately. These guys come in, and it's always a nice, polite one, and you serve them because you don't want to cause a scene, and they become a regular, and after a while, they bring a friend. And that dude is cool too. And then they bring friends, and the friends bring friends, and they stop being cool. And then you realize, oh shit, this is a Nazi bar now. And it's too late, because they're entrenched, and if you try to kick them out, they cause a problem. So you have to shut them down." And I was like, "Oh damn." And he said, "Yeah, you have to ignore their reasonable arguments because their end goal is to be terrible, awful people." And then he went back to ignoring me. But I haven't forgotten that at all. So the takeaway here is the reason we create these rules and these codes of conduct and enforce them so vehemently is we must, if we're going to keep this an inclusive space. But there's more that we can do, right? We don't just have to worry about keeping the darkness out. How else can we invite people to be a part of the community and share and be safe in that? Part of the way we do that is through our temp check. No matter what's happening, maybe it's a chant that we're doing, or maybe we're discussing fan art or fanfic, someone can type temp check in the chat. And when that happens, friendly little Carl bot will add his reactions to their message, and he'll add one of 3 icons that folks can then click on to kind of vote for how they feel. One is, "I'm fine, this is cool, I've got no problems with it." One is the yellow warning. "I'd like this to be toned down a little bit, so it's a little bit much." And then finally, there's the red stop sign. "I am not happy with this." If anyone responds with the red stop sign, we change it. Because you know what? If someone is being excluded, or we're rehashing trauma, or otherwise made uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable, I would so much rather change the topic and have them be a part of my group than to kick somebody out. I so much want that. There's places you can have private conversations, but this is our space where everyone's welcome. We remind folks to exercise empathy and be kind because everybody plays a little bit differently. There are ice cream sundaes that give you coins when players get incinerated. And so we say acknowledging income is fine, being surprised at the amount of income is fine, but actively celebrating any given incineration is not. Players care about the people and teams that got incinerated. They might be taking it kind of hard, But likewise, don't knock on anyone using Sundays. That's also a valid way to play the game. They might be their way of making the best of a bad situation. Exercise empathy. Be kind. And more along that everybody plays differently is the concept of forbidden knowledge. All that knowledge that cyber can extract by running numbers and extracting data from the actual game, people might not want to play with that. They might consider that extra and they just want to play with what they can get off the website. So all that stuff gets spoiler tagged in our Discord. So folks don't stumble upon it. They have to go seeking it out and choose it and opt in to that experience. And the way we enforce this and organize is through keepers and reps. I talked briefly about the groundskeepers, who are kind of like the main Discord mods and kind of keep things rolling. And then each team also has their representatives. Those representatives are exactly that. They're team reps to other teams. They also can be reps to the groundskeepers and organizing with the greater Blaseball community, as well as help with our own internal team strategy, right? How do you actually organize these people to do the same idea? Well, it's not that surprising. It's kind of the same way we do anything in the world. There's lots of discussion in the Discord about stats and strategies and ideas as the seasons develop. And when we get to the end and start to get an idea of what we want to do, we start polls. How do you feel about trading this player to another team for this other player? I think that's great. We could really use someone to help us get to the playoffs. Or no, please don't trade Bees Taswell. I love them so much. I need them to be on the mechanics. Both of those are valid answers. And you know what? If everybody really loves this player, even though it might be strategically sound to trade them, why would we do that? That's no fun. We want everyone to enjoy their time. And we have to make votes. We vote on it to make decisions about like where we wanted to go in the last season. We used ranked choice voting, which you should read about or ask me about. But yeah, voting on stuff. And those decisions don't hold you to it. We keep all sorts of strategy documents of ideas of what we want to do and what our long-term plans are and what the data actually looks like. And we record things like, what did you actually vote for? Even though we said, hey, mechanics, we're going to the desert, please vote for that. But also record your votes. How many votes did you put in? And what did you vote for? Even if you disagree with our strategy and choose to do something else, just tell us, because that gives us a good idea how we can compare what we need to do to accomplish our goals by knowing what's happening amongst our community and just asking for that information. And there's no shame if you don't want to join the strategy. We do what you want to do. It's your game too. See, that's how we organize many players into one team, or again, as the Hades Tigers say, many stripes, one tiger. But it continues to organize further because these many teams form one league. And I think no better example of this has been the last 2 seasons of Blaseball. First thing, the 2 seasons ago, Blaseball Cares was the sponsor. They're a not-for-profit collective that creates Blaseball merch, like this fantastic Core Mechanics Blaseball cap. And they donate all the proceeds. In this case, it was to Rainbow Road Railroad in Canada. And since season 5 have donated over 90,000 Canadian dollars to charity because people bought merchandise that they wanted anyway. On one level, Blaseball is a horror game, but it's a story, I think, for us about building a community amongst malevolent forces outside your control. Stephen Bell, narrative designer. This last season of Blaseball was an epic tale, and I can't have this talk without talking about it. I need to describe it. So the things you need to know are the coin is the boss, by which I mean both the end boss of the game and the boss in controls the decisions about Blaseball and mostly cares about growth and gaining consumers to the detriment of players and fans alike. So a bunch of wild stuff happens, but the important things are some of us go off to the desert and are scattered there, met by an oracle who says, rush the mound, to which we interpret punch the coin, and we go off to rush the mound together. And then off in the Hall of Flames, the hall monitor, a giant squid affectionately referred to as Binky, says, F this, I'm out, quits, and throws the Hall of Flames open, releasing every past incinerated team from the hall, flaming forth from the great doors to assault the coin. The charge led again by the Hades Tigers, which is just poetic. The Hades Tigers, a wreath of flame, leading the charge, every team from Blaseball, past and present, to assault the boss. Strikes the final blow, melts the coin, frees Blaseball from the coin's tyranny, but unfortunately, due to bad decisions, also cause a black hole to consume the entirety of Blaseball. Roll credits. See, but this story wasn't accidental. Part of it, first off, was amazing because it was a collaboration. The developers didn't tell us where to go on the map. We had to make those decisions by voting ourselves, and we all chose to play out this story. The sponsor for the very last season of Blaseball was the Bureau of Unity. Found out the Bureau of Unity turns out it's a union training group organized under the team, the Houston Spies, who are also a real Blaseball team, hosting their space. But it's a bunch of volunteers, IWW members, and Blaseball fans. Training sessions are run throughout the year. That week, they held a sign-up and a training about organizing your workplace. If you went to that link or clicked on Join the Bureau, you had this message. Blaseball is a game about organizing. It's a game about mobilizing our communities and working together towards a common goal, even in the face of adversity and cruel gods with power far above our own. And here is the parallel. This is their Twitter, rife with this great propaganda image, the kind of thing we use in our Discord to convince other players and teams to go along with our ideas and strategy, posted about charging the mound from the desert, and says, fun fact, in our union training, we cover the march on the boss via a roleplay activity. When all the employees come to the boss together to make their demands, they can't be singled out, and they control the situation. This was their 5th organization training they ran in conjunction with the folks with Blaseball and had more signups than they've ever had in the past. And I love this because the players and the developers get it. While Blaseball is a game and an opportunity to tell stories, this is not a game. Only we protect us if we organize together. The only way to stop the abuses that happen at Ubisoft, Activision Blizzard, Amazon, Uber, Google has a union, but tons of work to do. Microsoft, who seems kind of great, but they and Amazon and Google and other big companies still bid for millions and billions of dollars worth of questionable defense and weapons contracts that those developers may not want to support and work on, but individually, there is nothing that we can do. It is only together that we can organize and make the world we want to see and make the things that we want to see. Look at fast food. Already a world where people are complaining about not finding work or not getting pay. Burgerville in Portland has the first fast food union. So when Burgerville on the morning of August 3rd temporarily closed the 92nd and Powell location, the union reached out to employees to support them and offer mutual aid and begin investigating on the legality of the situation and trying to get folks what they need and get them back to work. That doesn't happen if you're on your own. So here's the takeaway. Empower your community to do great things. Instead of trying to convince them or getting them to see your side, offer it up. What does your community think about the direction you're taking your product? What does the open source community want to do with this software? Right? This is why open source is strong, because by organizing together, we can build awesome stuff, whether it's the next great software platform or the world that we want to see and the world that we want to work in. You want to change your workplace and change things? Organize. Join a union. I don't know what else to tell you. Thanks. Here are a bunch of resources if you want the pictures in the slide. I will take tons of questions, so please ask me anything about Blaseball or this talk, and I will happily answer them. Again, thank you very much. I am Aaron Aldrich, and you can find me on Twitter at Crazy.